Have you ever driven through McDonald's to grab a quick breakfast and thought to yourself, I could have made this at home. I would have saved time and money. Well, that's a question I asked myself recently, so I did a little comparison. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to answer a question. The question is, does it make more sense economically to make something at home, buy it pre-made from the freezer section, or go to McDonald's? So to answer this question today, we are going to specifically be looking at breakfast items. So the sausage McMuffin type of sandwich for breakfast, and then also an egg and cheese breakfast burrito. So we will go through homemade, the Jimmy Dean frozen version, and then I will go to McDonald's. I'm sure the family is going to be super excited about that day. And I will buy those breakfast items, and then we'll do a taste test. And I'm going to share with you how that turned out, what the family thought as far as a rating on each of those. Was it homemade, Jimmy Dean, or McDonald's? What tasted better? And then we'll also look at the cost to see what made sense financially. So I got these at the local grocery store. They're not something that I normally would buy. I usually just buy them when we're on vacation for quick breakfast, but the family does love these. They have a very long list of ingredients that I don't know that I'm a huge fan of, but maybe they taste better. We'll find out. So I'm going to be making those. I'm going to be making each of the items from scratch. I'm going to share that process with you. And then I will go to McDonald's and buy each of those items, bring them home. I'm sure the family's going to be excited about that day, have everyone test it out, give it a rating, and then we'll look at the three options for each of the items and see what really makes sense financially and time-wise, and then taste-wise. That's definitely part of the consideration. So let's get cooking.
Starting with the Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches. So this was a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin style. I wanted to make sure that when I was cooking them, I was getting as close as I possibly could to the size, the portions of the ingredients. So I started by weighing the sausage patty, and that was frozen. I knew that when I did my raw meat, it'd have to be a little bit more. It would cook down. My first guess on the weight was it was a lot more sausage than was actually in there, and I kept just reducing the amount until I got just a little bit over. And when I cooked it, I knew it would weigh a little bit less. So I got those, made them as circle-ish as possible to fry on the griddle. They kept sticking to that darn spatula, but it made it kind of fun to make those in the very odd shape. When I moved on to the eggs, I was determined to make those look as pretty as possible using a form. So I just scrambled one egg per sandwich and put those in the forms. I didn't have 4 circles, so I used a couple of hearts in there. And then I just wanted to cook the sausage, all the way through. This is something that you don't leave rare at all. This needs to be thoroughly cooked, and I kept just squishing it down so that I got it as flat as I possibly could. And then I got those eggs and I flipped them. You can see they did not hold their shape. And then on to the cheese. You can see the Jimmy Dean frozen cheese was not beautiful. And then I'm using an American cheese slice. And even though it was a little bit bigger, I used 1 slice per sandwich. American cheese melts down really well, and it did say that that was what was in the Jimmy Dean was American processed cheese. So pretty close match on that one. Just kept putting it on there. I was hoping that the eggs on the griddle would continue to kind of like melt that cheese. I don't know if it worked great. And then on to checking my sausage. I came pretty close to what the weight of the Jimmy Dean one was. It was so minimal in difference, I didn't feel like I needed to redo it. Putting the sausage on top of that cheese, you can see it still wasn't melting fabulous, but whatever. And then I warmed up the English muffins. I just used a generic brand of English muffins and got those kind of warmed up. And then that was basically what the sandwich was. And then the Jimmy Dean one, that baby's going, popped it in the microwave. So I popped that over in the microwave, assembled my 4 sandwiches. So I did 4 because that was how much was in the box that I bought, or how many was in the box. So there is my homemade version. The English muffin was 26 cents. The sausage measurement out ended up being 38 cents. Cheese, 10 cents a slice. And then an egg was about a quarter. So 99 cents on the homemade version. Altogether, it took me 15 minutes to make those, and that was including recording time, so maybe even faster than that. So about 3.5 minutes each. And then the ingredients: English muffin, egg, American cheese, and then that sausage. And then, to be fair, I did mention that I wasn't impressed with Jimmy Dean's, all their ingredients. So I went ahead and listed out all the ingredients in the homemade for each of the things that I had purchased. So the English muffin definitely had a lot of ingredients. The egg was just an egg. Sausage was basic sausage. There wasn't a ton of extra things in there. And then American cheese, there's some different things in there, but I listed it all out for the brand that I bought, what was in that American cheese, for a fair comparison to the Jimmy Dean list of ingredients that I'll share in just a second. And then moving on to the Jimmy Dean frozen sandwiches. So that's what that turned out. Those were $7.79 for 4 sandwiches before tax, so about $1.95 each, so double what the homemade version was. The timing was about the same, 3 minutes, not counting shopping time. I'm assuming that we, purchased other things when we were at the market, so I didn't count shopping time. So 3 minutes in the microwave. The ingredients are basically the same. One thing they do not say it's an egg. They call it a fully cooked egg patty. And so that was curious to me as far as what ingredients does that mean. So let's look at that. Looking at their ingredients, English muffin, to be fair, is kind of similar to the one that I bought, the store version. The pork and chicken sausage patty definitely had more ingredients. I had just bought pure pork sausage. And then that fully cooked egg patty, that had a lot of extra ingredients. Obviously, the homemade version was literally an egg. Their egg patty has quite a bit of extra junk in it. And then American processed cheese, that was fairly similar to the store version that I had bought. So not too much different. But the egg patty, come on, guys, you could have just added an egg instead of all that other extra chemical stuff. The third was the McDonald's sausage egg McMuffin. So I went through the drive-thru. That was $3.59. It was only like 5 minutes at the drive-thru. It went pretty fast. They are pretty transparent about their ingredients. Similar to the homemade version, English muffin, egg, American cheese, and sausage. And then as far as the specific ingredients, similar to the homemade version, English muffin had a lot of ingredients. The sausage was pretty basic sausage, a whole egg, and then the American cheese. So fairly similar. And then moving on to the actual comparison. So the cost on the Jimmy Dean, $1.95, McDonald's $3.59, homemade $99. So homemade was definitely cheaper, not as cheap as I thought. And then as far as time, fairly comparable. If you were at the market or on your way and McDonald's was just a quick stop, it really wasn't that big a difference. But then when we look at taste, this is where I rated it, my family rated it. The Jimmy Dean was definitely number 3 out of all of them. And the McDonald's was very good, but not as good as homemade. Everyone rated homemade as the best version out of all of them, and it could have been because it was definitely the freshest. So homemade wins all the way on this one. And then on to the breakfast burritos. So we have Jimmy Dean's sausage breakfast burritos. And once again, I wanted to get an idea of how much that weighed. So I was creating similar sizes. So basic first ingredient was eggs. Once again, I used real whole eggs. So I put those in a bowl, make sure I didn't have any extra shells in them, and then mixed those up so that they were scrambled up before I poured them into the pan. And then I moved on to the sausage. So I did about half of a roll of sausage. I did not take apart the Jimmy Dean to weigh out the specific ingredients. I just kind of guessed 4 burritos would be half a roll of sausage and then the 4 eggs. So the sausage, I'm just, chopping that up. I want to cook it all the way through, and you could see it was kind of sticky, but that's just how sausage is. So, chop, 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 cook it up, get it all the way browned, and then I went ahead and turned that off. And then I needed to move on to making my eggs. So I actually did this in a separate pan. So I just put a little bit of cooking spray in there, and then my eggs that I had already beat up, and just trying to make some nice fluffy eggs. I'm really careful not to move that around terribly in the pan. So I cooked those all the way through. And just like any breakfast burrito, you want to cook all of the ingredients all the way, separately before you put them together. And then once those were all done, I made an attempt to divide it into 4, thinking I was going to make 4 burritos. I did this with the eggs, and then I also did it with the sausage to try to make everything as equal as possible. So divided the sausage the same way. I do this a lot if I'm trying to do like perfect portions to make things even. I will divide it in the pan, and so as I'm scooping it, I'm making sure that I get kind of like the equal amount of portions. And then onto cheese, I use the American cheese again. The idea was 1 slice per burrito. So I just tore that up and put it on the eggs. I knew since the eggs were off, it wasn't going to melt all the way, but hopefully once everything is all put together that I can melt that cheese in there. So 1 slice per burrito was the idea. So I kept on doing that. And then once that was all done, onto the tortillas. So I'm just using some soft flour tortillas from a bag that I had, soft flour size, not the giant ones, because I wanted to get similar in size to the Jimmy Dean burritos. So starting with those tortillas, and they're not warm at this point. They're just, you can see they're straight out of the bag. Laid those out, and then I wanted to weigh the ingredients, so at least the finished weight was similar to the Jimmy Dean size. So I got the scale all set up, and then on with the tortilla. And as I started to add my ingredients, I realized that this was going to make more than 4 burritos. It was clear that was too much. Once I added the sausage, the burrito just weighed too much. I had to take some of it out. And so I realized that I was actually going to end up making probably like 6 burritos from this, not 4, for them to end up about the same size as the Jimmy Dean. So, you learn as you experiment with things. And so I just, made a burrito, put the stuff in there, and then got those rolled up. And the finished product ended up being very similar looking to the Jimmy Dean, about the same size. And as I mentioned, I ended up with 6 of these. I saran wrapped these so I could put them into the freezer for a quick breakfast. And that's what the result was there is our homemade version. And then we had, as far as cost goes, the tortillas 29 cents, sausage 38 cents, cheese 10 cents, and then the egg was 25 cents. So $1.02 each. Took me 15 minutes to make 6 of them, so 2.5 minutes. Ingredients were pretty basic. So here were the specific ingredients for the things I'd purchased from the store to make those. Not a huge list, but a considerable list. The tortilla has a lot of ingredients. And then moving on to the Jimmy Dean breakfast burritos. So that was what I had purchased at the store. Just microwaved those, and then I cut it to look kind of at the inside. And guys, I thought this was gross. I don't know what that was, like egg soup or something. I'm not sure. That was the Jimmy Dean version. So these were $7.79 for 4 of them, $1.95 each. Microwave for 2 minutes. And then I did look at the ingredients. They had a lot of ingredients. Once again, they didn't just use straight eggs. They used eggs plus a bunch of other stuff. And the McDonald's breakfast burrito, I got one of those too to compare. So this had come home with me. It had been sitting for just a little bit, but I did open up just to kind of look at the ingredients. I did notice that they did put some peppers in their eggs, and the other two, the homemade version and the Jimmy Dean, did not have that. And it did seem to have more of a cheesy sauce, maybe like a nacho cheese type of sauce. These were $2.29 each. Just took me a few minutes at the drive-thru. Their ingredients were basic. I did look into the detailed ingredients, and they were a little bit longer. And then here's the 3 burritos side by side. So McDonald's, Jimmy Dean, and homemade. And I really noticed as I held them up together just the quality of the ingredients. Jimmy Dean's looks like soup. McDonald's and homemade look pretty good. And so that was the 3 burritos. And when we compare these 3, Jimmy Dean $1.95, McDonald's $2.29, and homemade $1.02. So similar, price comparison. Each of them just took a couple of minutes. And as far as taste goes, we had similar results as the sandwiches, where the Jimmy Dean was definitely third. I would have rated it 10th. I thought that was nasty, how it looked like soup in there. And then as far as McDonald's and homemade, this was kind of tough because the McDonald's burrito, because they put the peppers in there, and then the cheese was more like a nacho cheese kind of spread. We had a kind of a tough time deciding, but we did say homemade was better, and we put McDonald's in the number 2 spot for the burritos.
So were you surprised? I know I was. I thought the homemade versions were going to be a lot less expensive. I didn't realize that they would come in as close as they did. I also was surprised on the frozen burritos. I had never tasted one of those before this question was asked. I don't think I will buy those again. I think one of the huge advantages of the homemade version is you could really make it exactly how you want it. So if you were dieting and you wanted to use, a lighter bun and turkey sausage and egg whites, you could definitely do that. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility, or if you have someone that has a gluten intolerance or something like that, or doesn't want dairy or whatever it is, you can really customize it. So that is one huge advantage. And these items, they're breakfast things. You could totally make them in batches at the beginning of the week and put them in the freezer. They reheat really good. So that would definitely be an advantage. I'd love to know your thoughts. So leave me some comments below the video. Let me know what you think. Or if you have something else you want me to look into and investigate, compare the prices and the time on, let me know that in the comments too. I'd love to pick that up as a video idea. Well, until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.